Adult learning theory says there's the experience that we have, then there's the time for self-reflection when we get to process it, and then we come up with the action. My sense is that we don't spend enough time in the self-reflective part. It tends to be experience, response, stimulus, response, and everything is about fast pace and get her done, which is great for a high achievement environment, but sometimes you can confligate effectiveness and efficiency. And I think when it comes, so that's one thing if it's about manufacturing widgets in a plant. It's another thing when you're dealing with human beings. And I think we need to all give ourselves more time to process, to self-reflect, to think through before we necessarily feel like we have to have that fast twitch, instant on response. Electric cars like Teslas are great for performance, but we're not Teslas. We need that processing time and that reflective time. And I think if we were more reflective, both as individuals, we foster a greater sense of joy, happiness, gratitude, compassion. And if we do it as a species, we'll create a more perfect union and have a healthier, vibrant planet.
This is the Play Your Position podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
Hello, Team PYP. Mary Lou Kaiser here. Welcome to another episode of the Play Your Position podcast. Today is game day, and you know what that means. I have a wonderful guest who is here to share with us his viewpoints on leadership and life and how we can all show up and play a bigger game as who we are. His name is Neville Billimoria. Neville, are you ready for kickoff?
I was born ready. Let's go.
Oh, I love the enthusiasm. Yes, indeed. So, team, here's some things I know about Neville. He is an effective communications and values leader. He grows organizations through things like external marketing, media, and sales effectiveness, as well as internal organizational alignment, corporate communications, and leadership development. He brings experience, energy, and empowerment to his leadership role as a senior vice president, membership marketing, and chief advocacy officer at Mission Federal Credit Union, which is a $4.5 billion institution and the largest financial services organization exclusively serving San Diego, California. Now, Neville has a very interesting background. He's won all kinds of awards. His credit union was rated as one of the best state credit unions and highest ranked local credit union in 2018. And the list of awards goes on and on and on. Right now, he is serving on several boards. He graduated from UC San Diego. He's actively involved with the alumni board. He teaches martial arts, he teaches yoga and meditation on the campus of UC San Diego, and he's been doing that for over 38 years. He's a really interesting man, and I'm excited that he is here. So, Neville, let's get started with focusing on what it is about you and your call to leadership. That's my first question. Tell us a story about when you got that call to leadership and knew that leadership was going to be a part of your life.
Well, thanks, Mary Lou, and thanks for that introduction. It sounds so officious. I hope the conversation can be more about our authentic selves, and the call for leadership actually sparks that. So I think I have to go back to, kind of Brené Brown's sense of woundedness and worthiness and growing up bicultural in India. And the English kid said I was Indian, and the Indian kid said I was English because my mom's English, my dad's Indian. So what was I? And so early on, the need to both fit in, measure up, feel valued was probably the impetus. And at the time, it was really tough as a young person because the feeling marginalized or, left out was brutal. But in hindsight, I was able to turn those stumbling blocks into stepping stones. And I would say that was probably some of my earlier calls to leadership along the way. As a really young person, I was the conductor of our school When we did Hungarian Rhapsody #2 by Franz Liszt, I still know that every note by heart. So it emerged and evolved from there. But I think really the seed was, they say adversity breeds character. I don't think that's true. I think adversity reveals character. And so I would use that as my birth story for leadership.
So tell us more about, the big theme here at PYP is playing your position and figuring things out about, you use the word, how do I fit in? And when we're young, that's a huge question that we ask ourselves a lot. And as we get older and more comfortable knowing who we are, that becomes less of an issue. However, our young years do shape us. And as you think about where you are now, Neville, with the leadership roles that you've been so fortunate to play in your career, and certainly the work that you do on the campus at UC San Diego, for listeners who might be still in that place of, trying to figure out, where do I fit in? How do I use my unique makeup? You talked about being bicultural. How do we tap into the uniqueness that is us, and that those adverse experiences to turn them into something that's beautiful and valuable and a gift to the world?
Wonderful question. I would probably use two frames of reference. One is Western psychology and one is the wisdom tradition, since I have the privilege of living in both those worlds, and maybe that can be of value in terms of answering your question. So from the Western psychological perspective, I'm channeling Maslow right now in his hierarchy of needs and boiling it down into really just three primary categories. At the very bottom, it's psychological safety and having people feel physically and psychologically safe. If we don't feel psychologically safe, then we're not going to be able to move to love and belonging, which is that if you actually think about our post-George Floyd social reckoning world that we're living in with diversity, equity, and inclusion as three circles in a Venn diagram. At the center point of those three is belonging. That's what people really need, and human beings with their deep sense of connectedness, love and belonging become a super important aspect of our personhood. And then that, if you can ascend through those two, then the final one is significance and purpose and finding your own place. And so again, using what I prefer as positive organizational scholarship as a framework, which includes affirmative inquiry, positive psychology, there's a host of sub-disciplines in there, then you can find your purpose and find your authentic self. But it comes from, as we started even with my personal sharing, from that place of being maybe psychologically unsafe, but working your way through it. So that would be the Western construct. The Eastern parallel comes from the Qigong traditions of Chinese yoga, if you will, where, as we think about ourselves as not just a physical body, but an energetic body. Again, quantum medicine and the wisdom traditions, whether you're looking back 2,500 years ago or 2,500 milliseconds ago, are starting to validate the same thing. Human beings are an interaction and in the right environment, a proper balance of information and energy, where we focus on the information and not as much about the energetic. So there, it's about the shorthand, again, keeping the threes going for easy reference points. It's courage, which comes from your center, your abdominal area, your primal energy. That's your motivation to do the right thing. From there, you try to ascend to emotional balance, which comes from your heart center, around your thymus gland. That's about empathy and compassion. And if you're able to ascend from that to your third eye or your seat of intuition, and this is where wisdom resides, not just smarts. We've all met tons of people that are super smart, but they're so smart they're stupid. It's wisdom that really, the wisdom traditions are trying to invite us, discernment, embodied experience, living the values, being authentic. So I think both Lao Tzu and Maslow, while approaching it from entirely different frameworks, are taking us to a same place of ascension of our personal development. You can think about it as Adam 1 and Adam 2, and I'm using the Adam and Eve story as a framework. Adam 1 is all of our roles, all the roles we want to be seen with, all the titles, like all the accolades, like I said, wow, that sounds really officious, award this and title that and the other thing. But that's not who I am. Those are just roles that I play. There's many roles I get to play in my life. I'm a husband, I'm a dad, I'm a lover of animals, I clean toilets, so I don't want to be I shouldn't relegate my identity to my roles. My roles don't equal my identity, but that requires me to do some introspection and reflection and realize that don't believe everything you think. And modern Western construct can quickly suck us into that. How many likes do I have on Facebook? Or, am I cool and hip and so on? So anyway.
Oh, yes. Oh, you are getting into some really important territory with where we're at right now. At this point in time in the evolution of our humanity, and gosh, there's so many directions I can go. What I hear though that really speaks so loudly to me, and what I know Team PYP values, is this almost a collision between a Western way of seeing the world and the wisdom philosophies that you were drawing on, and it's been building for quite some time. And I think the pandemic in a lot of ways, while awful on some dimensions, has also thrust us into this new dimension, for lack of a better term, where we have to look at all the things. It can't just be one certain way. And so you are a leader in many different capacities. You mentioned several different roles. And that's exactly right. We're not just one thing. We're a composite of a lot of things. And, energy is constantly moving in and out of us. And there's lots of stuff that plays into how we show up. From your vantage point, Neville, what do you think is the hardest thing about being a leader today? What are some of the biggest challenges that maybe you experience and or you see other leaders in any capacity facing right now?
Yeah, so my first thought is that leadership is not a position, it's a decision. Mm-hmm. And so we can all lead from where we stand. So positional authority that we assign or give to leaders should arguably rightfully be earned by who they are, not just their role. So I think the challenges are for leaders and emerging leaders, and we all go through this. One of them is imposter syndrome. You're doing something, and there's a little voice in the back of your head going, "What the hell am I doing here? I don't know what the heck's happening," right? So how do you navigate that? Do you put on a facade of "I've got this" and you fake it till you make it? There's a part of that that's absolutely constructive and useful. People are not going to follow you if they don't feel that they can trust you and you know where you're going and you have a clear vision. On the other hand, being vulnerable and authentic and being able to say, "I don't know," or "What do you think?" or "I don't have all the answers," but no one of us is as smart as all of us. And so what can we all contribute to our body of knowledge or felt experience or understanding or solving this seemingly intractable problem, whether that's climate emergency or divisiveness of human societies or whatever you're trying to pick, homelessness, food insufficiency in a post-COVID environment. There's a lot of them. So I think it's really the balancing act, that edge walking between having your spit together on the one hand and being able to model and mentor those qualities at the same time, remaining humble and vulnerable and authentic. And because when you project that in the right balance, and it's definitely balanced, then that invites followership to do the same. If you act like all that in a bag of chips, as my daughter might say, then all you do is foster that kind of culture. So I think that one of the great things leaders do is they create and manage culture. And again, that's where the energy lives. That's where the values in an organization get brought to life. You say mission is inspirational, vision is aspirational, and values are perspirational. You have to actually do the work, right? So
I love that. Nice. That's new to me. I like that framing. Now, you mentioned your daughter. So you are a father, you have children, and you talked about the very superficiality, the metrics that we who engage on social media are seeing all the time. It's the likes, it's the followers, it's those numbers. Do you think, and I don't know if you've had conversations with your children about this, and it's okay if you haven't, you could certainly just answer it in general. Do you think it's possible to be authentic online? Or is the ecosystem of the internet so designed to not allow that completely? What are your thoughts on that?
Complex question. Technology is a great enabler or slave. It's a horrible master. It's if you look at how it's being used for the most part in this age of distraction, we're all getting dopamine hits from our smartphones. There's more smartphones on this planet than there are toilets and toothbrushes. So
I did not know that.
People are literally pooping in the fields and then going and using their smartphone to do banking or other things in parts of this world. So I think on the one hand, it conditions you for, when you're waiting for those three dots to light up and wondering what the response is going to be, you're getting a nice, a chemical cocktail that's hitting your brain, and that's conditioning us. So actually, we're now being run by the devices. But that said, I think, if you choose, again, if you choose and are discerning and can understand and have some control over that impulse control over which media you use, and even to what degree you measure success. Unfortunately, for young people, all you see on Facebook is, the best of. You don't hear the challenges. They're starting to emerge now in what they're calling diseases of despair. For the first time in the last 2 years, our mortality rates are actually going up. Our lifespans are being reduced because of things like the opioid epidemic, suicide, depression, anxiety. This is a leading indicator that something is awry. And so I think if we don't pay attention to that and don't help young people with things like digital literacy and understanding how to use the medium and building other strengths, other micro habits, including being out in nature, connecting with people in person, again, post-COVID when it's safe and social distancing and masks and all the other things are notwithstanding. Without those, we're not equipping them for their full self. They're going to have a technical personhood, and I think that's very problematic. So I think it's a mixed bag. On the one hand, the technology can be you can democratize data. I mean, you can create revolutions. There's a lot that can be done with technology, but on the other hand, used for the wrong purpose or with the wrong intent or with just lack of awareness could be super problematic in my estimation.
Well, thank you for that tough answer to a complex question. There is no question about that.
Invite your readers or to viewers to watch The Social Dilemma if they haven't seen that. And that'll reset us all, right?
Yes. I when I watched that, it hit me right in the solar plexus. It was just one of those wake up calls. And of course, I think those of us who work hard to be conscientious, to pay attention to what's going on, to have conversations that aren't always easy, have a sense of these things. But it's not until somebody someone's like the folks who put that documentary together, cobble together all the things where we then see it in this 2-hour snapshot when it becomes much more urgent.
Yeah, glaringly apparent.
Exactly.
But it's hidden in plain sight. And if you don't, like they say, it's not magic to the magician. So
it's so true. It's hidden in plain sight. And we're going about our days. We're showing up and doing the best we can. And this engine, this invisible engine, yet this highly visible engine is always running. And it's not until we slow down long enough to look around and say, well, wait a minute, is this really what we want? Is this really how am I contributing? How am I contributing to either the problem or the solution? Because you're doing either one. I mean, that's just how it works.
Yeah, another way I've heard it articulated is you get the pain of discipline or you get the pain of regret.
Yes.
So those of us that are willing to, absorb it on the front end, and again, legitimate suffering. Too many philosophies talk about illegitimate suffering, and that's not what I'm speaking to here. But I'm saying, discipline is to train to proper conduct. So discipline is actually a path to freedom if it's rightly understood. In the West, discipline and freedom are oxymoronic. But if it's for the right objective and done the proper way, discipline is liberating. But
yes.
So that's the pain of discipline. or you get the pain of regret, which is mindlessness, following the Joneses. The psychopathology of the average is what normalcy is defined as by psychologists. The psychopathology of the average. Who wants to be the Joneses? Why are we keeping up with the Joneses? The Joneses are freaking nuts. So,
yeah. I know. They're on 10 prescription drugs. They're drinking, overeating every night. I mean, they're just contributing to the climate change. Oh, it's, and that was a fabrication, that whole, again, to sell products. And that's a whole different conversation. What I would like to know is who helps you continue to grow, Neville? Who do you turn to either as a coach, a mentor? Is there a book you read often? How do you enhance your practice?
So I think the first one is mind. So I would categorize it in 3 categories: mindset, heart set, and skill sets. So the mindset is a lifelong learning mindset. As you shared, I teach martial arts, but I don't see myself as a martial arts master. I see myself as a martial arts master learner or a master student. So a lifelong learning, I'm still hungry, thirsty, voracious reader, investing time in growing myself in so I can build my capability to grow others. I think the first thing is you've got to set the bar for yourself high enough and invest in your own practice. So that's the mindset. The heart set is it quickly becomes not about just you, but everybody else. There's no leadership without followership, and you're cultivating capacity, not for accolades and titles and to, summit another mountain, but you're doing it in service of somebody or some group. So it's not ego system, it's ecosystem. How can I be thoughtful and intentional about what is the impact and outcome of this quote unquote leadership imperative? And so that heart set then changes and becomes human-centered, and there's always people at the center of your equation, and all the stakeholders in your ecosystem should matter if you understand your process properly. So using business as a framework, business 1.0 was all the profit first. It didn't matter if you burnt down the trees or destroyed the forests or sold tobacco to young people. If you got profit for your stakeholders, that was your job. Business 2.0 was saying, no, it's actually customer first. You take care of your customer, they'll take care of your profits. Well, okay, so we've added humans to the equations. Hallelujah, that's a great opening start. However, along with that come silly things like the customer is always right. Well, the customer isn't always right. The customer can't walk into our branches and treat our employees rudely and us say, okay, that's completely cool because the customer's right. So the good news is, okay, at least we've added humans to the equation. Bad news is it comes with some baggage. 3.0 suggests that since your customer experience rarely exceeds your employee experience, maybe culture is first. So if you take care of your people, that will take care of your customer, and that will take care of your profit. Well, 4.0, and I mentioned purpose, the significance and purpose at the top of Maslow's hierarchy, suggests that all the stakeholders in your ecosystem matter. So your customers matter, your employees matter, shareholders matter, but your community matters too. And so what are the implications and impacts of the work you're doing and the results or adverse results of how you might be generating value for the rest of the community, maybe for the rest of the planet? And so now this is what even people like Larry Fink with his BlackRock Capital multi-trillion-dollar hedge fund said, if your organization is not purposeful and generating value, not just extracting value, we're not going to even carry your books on the books anymore. So you're seeing pivots back to your point of, post-COVID and climate emergency and all these pressures on humans and on our planet are creating a wake-up call. It's a pretty serious wake-up call, and we're facing an existential threat that we're either going to work collaboratively to address, or we're going to bear the burden of those poor choices and implications. So I think that's the skill sets. The last piece of my 3: mindset is the growth, heart set is people at the center of the equation, and then the skill sets are building a community of practice. You are the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. So take a look at your calendar and see who you're hanging with. If you're hanging with a bunch of naysayers and, whiners and complainers, and all the time is spent in political divisiveness, that's telling you that you're the average of those 5 people. If you're hanging out with people that are trying to advance their own personal practice, make the world a better place, thinking about other people, volunteering, that's the average of the 5 people that you are becoming. Because and this is not just anecdotal, the data will bear this out. There's books written on this concept of social network and social capital and how we're influenced by others. So long-winded answer to your question, but the short answer is mindset, heart set, skill sets with some drop downs with each of those.
I like that visual, the drop downs.
It's halftime here at the Play Your Position podcast, and we've got ourselves a great game. While you're up grabbing another snack and topping off your favorite beverage, make sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss another play. PYP is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever great podcasts can be found. Now, let's get back to the game.
It's so helpful when someone like yourself presents a very simple framework, right? You have 3 words, you know what they mean, you think about them. It's a great takeaway for listeners. And as you know, we're all adjusting and refining our approach, our playbook to our lives, our businesses, our careers, whatever it is we may be showing up in the world to do. So having those 3 words, it's a really good modeling, Neville. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And we're at the point of the show that I call Move the Chains. So for football fans, everybody knows that most of the game is when one team is trying to move the ball down the field towards the end zone while the other team is trying to stop them, and then the flip-flops. And a lot of craziness goes on during that time period. So would you please tell us about a time, Neville, when you found yourself playing out of position, when things did not go according to your game plan? You thought you had it all figured out, and nope, you were metaphorically sacked, intercepted, or you fumbled the ball. What happened, and what was the lesson you took away from that experience?
Great question. So actually, I like your football framework. And with kickoff, I was even thinking about this morning is it better to give or to receive? And kickoff, typically we're thinking, I'm going to kick that ball down the field and I'm going to, get this game started. But the kickoff sometimes is about receiving what comes your way and making the best of it. And so I just thought that was, and if I'm others focused, then maybe it's not about, it's not all about my instrumental capacity to shift or make change or create impact and me. Maybe it's about me being so present in the moment to respond to what is required, what is necessitated, what is urgent, what is essential, making the main thing. So anyway, I just needed to get to that one before we move the chains.
I love it. Yes.
So now let's move the chains. So I'll reflect back on a time when I'd had my own advertising agency and I'd sold it to a large organization, large global brand. I was in this in a consulting agreement with them and in transition. And at that time, I had these 2 worlds. There was my world of work, where yes, all those external business development, sales, marketing, branding, internal organizational development, fostering culture, and doing some executive coaching. And then I had my other alter ego, right, where I was doing the martial arts and meditation and yoga. And I felt incongruent because I was almost, schizophrenic. There were 2 aspects to my personhood. And so I felt I was not playing myself because there's only one me, and why am I boxing myself in and trying to be something I'm not? And so that I had a little epiphany, and one of those things, the external world of work was about the wellness of business, and the other one was the business of wellness. And I decided to smack those 2 worlds together and said, enough already. I'm going to bring that inner domain to my outer world and the outer domain to my inner world, and let happen what may. And so the not playing the position was that fragmentation, that the root of the word health comes from whole, and the root of the word patient is to suffer. So we suffer because we're fragmented, we're broken, we're in different pieces, we're disconnected. Yoga, to yoke, to union, the same thing. Again, is the Eastern equivalent is to be whole. And so it's not about just, contorting your body into some pretzel-like pose you can on the cover of Newsweek. No. This ultra badass body, that's fine. That's only one very small manifestation of yoga. So the moving the chains for me was when I actually removed the chains from my own personhood, and I enabled my authentic self to show up in both circumstances. And so that would be my reflection and my invitation to everybody else is there's only one you in this whole wide world. So be yourself.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's such a great message. We cannot hear it enough. We're such a stubborn lot, we humans. So we need constant reminders. It's like, it's not a one and done. And I love that you brought up yoga has become it has become commoditized in America,
Absolutely.
at least, where it's a huge business now. And what is being marketed is that perfect body, because in this culture, we are so obsessed with perfection, and physical perfection is part of that equation. And yet that's the health or the physique is a side effect of the bigger purpose of yoga, which is not just to have the rock hard abs.
Exactly.
But that's what it's become in this country. Oh dear. Well, the world is constantly changing. We've been touching on that somewhat today, Neville, and I would like you to look into your crystal ball and make some predictions about what is going to have the greatest impact on how we show up to work in life over the next 5 years.
So I would say a few things. Again, I would posit that it's this attending to both information and energy, not just information. We talk about the information age and we become really focused on the informational side of it, but that's only one aspect of what it is to be human. So that quickly then when you get into energy, we're talking about, again, not just strategy in businesses, but culture. As Einstein said, not everything that counts can be counted. Peter Drucker, who created Management by Objectives, the business guru, said culture eats strategy for breakfast. Kaplan and Norton, the people that created the balanced scorecard that's used as the digital dashboard in most of the Fortune 500 companies across the world, not just in the US, said 75% of your value comes from intangibles that you can't measure. So if we let's take love. Just because I don't have a probe that you can stick into my heart and it can tell you how much I love. The lack of the measurement or just the ability to measure the things that are easy are going to hold us back. We have to be able to to see what's hidden in plain sight, to what we talked about earlier. And so attending to energy, attending to cultures and organizations, and again, the environment we find ourselves in today globally with the 100-year pandemic is fostering system of hope and healing.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've lost the healing. We all of us can be in the care business. We don't have to just be in healthcare or anything else that ends in the word care. And again, if we put people at the center and energy matters and it's we, not me, then the natural conclusion we have to lead to is how do we create more hope and more healing for all people, all sentient beings on this planet, including the tiny blue planet itself. So,
this precious planet that we are so fortunate to live on and to live.
Yep. And so my prognostication is that we need to really inform more people about the urgency of that and empower, I would say ennoble, because empower suggests I have the power and I'm giving it to you, but they already have the power within them. So who am I or you to give them power? But to ennoble them to see their instrumental role in us all playing symphonically to create a hope and healing culture. That would be both my intention and my appeal. And if we set the right intention and we put the hard work into it, then I think that could become the prognostication that we can create our own reality.
I love the way you phrase things. So elegant and eloquent. Just gets me thinking about the difference between a word like empowerment and ennobling. I mean, it's just that slight difference, and it's huge. So thank you for making that distinction and for having a hopeful vision. I believe too that we have enough of an awareness now that things have to change, and it starts with us. It always does, but the urgency is greater than it has been.
Yep.
So
and I'm reminded of the Scottsdale paradox, Hanoi, Hilton, Vietnam War. Admiral Scottsdale is one of the people that's a prisoner of war and coming out. And you found this out with Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning and other places, right? People in incredibly, insanely, unforgivably inhumane situations. But some come out and they're broken and they never get back to baseline. Others with a lot of therapy support can at least get to status quo. And then there's this unique group that come out better, stronger, faster, more resilient, more capable, come up with systems like logos therapy, using the Viktor Frankl's example. And so I would hope that the best of humanity can lean in and embody those kind. We're going to come out of this better, not end up at best getting back to baseline. I don't think that's enough. I think we can do better, and we can do better if we do it together. This is this is an all play. So
it is.
Back to your kickoff and move the chains. This is like we're going to make the playing field bigger and get all the teams on there at the same time and move the ball down in the same direction, the same goalpost. And the whole crowd is going to shed their local hats and wear and celebrate the unanimity of our shared success, because we won the best game ever.
Oh, that leads me that you have led right into the next question, which is the part of the show I call touchdown. You're really getting into that. So you are in the red zone, Neville. That's where I'm putting you. There are less than 30 seconds left on the clock. You're down by 4 points. It's third down and it's now or never. Tell us a story about a time when you metaphorically ran the ball into the end zone for that game-winning touchdown.
Wow. That makes it all about me. So I'm having a little difficulty.
You can talk about you in the context of others.
Yeah,
how's that?
That helps a lot. So the first one that popped in a sporting metaphor was actually competing in 1990 in Lima, Peru, in the World Championships in the martial arts on a synchronized men's team.
Nice.
And the magic of three people moving as one, breathing as one, knowing exactly where those other two guys were in any moment. And as we change direction, the lead shifts magically from A to B based on where we are in that equation. That's and getting not even having to intellectualize any of that. This all happening from just repetition, practice, trust, fostering this, capacity. I think that was like score, ending up, whatever, number 4 in the world. We didn't win the championships, but boy, we loved the experience of having it high stakes. And by the way, this was when Sendero Luminosa, the shining path, Americans were targets. So here we are, we're walking into a 10,000 person stadium, and there's people with AK-47s guarding the doors. We've got USA patches on, so we're like, we might as well have a target on our back. And in preparation for going to this event, we practiced, rappelling out of hotel windows in case there was a hostage takeover. So while the average Joe was getting there and thinking about, oh God, I hope I don't mess this up, we had all that other psychological factors to attend to. So in spite of all of that, to go out there and rock it, that was pretty cool.
That is a great story. And for so many reasons. One, just the visual, again, that you painted of you and your teammates moving together in synchronicity. And then, of course, on top of that, the tension of the political unrest and I think those of us who live in America forget that there's a lot of people in the world that don't like us. And as much as we like to think we're affable and generous and giving, in which we are, there's also people who are trained to not like us because we are who we are. We're America. And that was in 1990. That's 31 years ago.
Exactly. But The cool thing, so yes, on the one hand, absolutely right. You're scared spitless because you got to be prepared for what you don't know. On the other hand, the local people were so wonderful. We took a bunch of
Yes.
pins and flags, and they wanted our autographs. They treated us like rock stars, and so, so it is this complete counterpoint. On the one hand, you're wondering about, am I going to get out of here alive? And on the other hand, you're being just showered with love and affection and generosity. So it's a strange world we live in.
It is. I was a chaperone for my daughter's girl choir back in 2013. We went to China to tour. We were on a 12-day tour and went to 5 cities. And the obviously the political tension between China and America has been pretty heavy for a long time. Even though we've had friendly times, there's always been a tension. I mean, let's just cut to the chase. And yet, to your point about the locals, the girls were the locals just mobbed the girls. They wanted to get photos. They wanted their autographs. And these were girls ages 14 to 18. And they never experienced anything like that before. And it was just something about, they wanted to touch the blonde hair.
Yep.
They wanted to get their children, babies
in the picture. Yep.
Oh my gosh, it was crazy. At all the concerts that they performed at, there was standing room only. And I as a parent, as I was sitting there with my other moms, we just looked at each other and said, "Is this real?" And to your point, it's a strange world we live in, and you never know. But the people, we just want to live our lives and do good in the world, if the way best we can, and then you get the mess of our leaders who don't always get it right. Oh boy. Well, we're coming to the end of our conversation, Neville, which is both it's been wonderful. It's also sad. I always get a little bit of a ping at this point of the show when I ask you to share 1 to 3 key offensive strategies straight out of your leadership playbook that listeners could implement right away to make some forward progress in their work and or their life. Maybe you could draw on the work you do with meditation, yoga, and martial arts, or perhaps it's more of a broader philosophy, anything that you feel would be a good walk away for listeners.
So I'll revert to adult learning theory, which suggests there's 3 parts to us assimilating anything. And so hopefully this is not just entertainment value for people. It might have helped you pass some time. It might have made you think about a few things. But at the end of the day, hopefully there's some takeaways that can make this actionable for you. I think that's the spirit of your question, Mary Lou. So
yes.
Adult learning theory says there's the experience that we have, then there's the time for self-reflection when we get to process it, and then we come up with the action. My sense is that we don't spend enough time in the self-reflective part. It tends to be experience, response, stimulus, response. And everything is about fast pace and get her done, which is great for a high achievement environment. But sometimes you can conflagate effectiveness and efficiency. And I think when it comes, so that's one thing if it's about, manufacturing widgets in a plant. It's another thing when you're dealing with human beings. And I think we need to all give ourselves more time to process, to self-reflect, to think through before we necessarily feel like we have to have that fast twitch, instant on response. Electric cars like Teslas are great for performance, but we're not Teslas. We need that processing time and that reflective time. And I think if we were more reflective, both as individuals, we foster a greater sense of joy, happiness, gratitude, compassion. And if we do it as a species, we'll create a more perfect union and have a healthier, a vibrant planet. So a little more self-reflection is probably in order. I would say that would be my big takeaway. And again, that comes from adult learning theory. Those of us that take the time to reflect, digest, process, we tend to be able to then embody it rather than just parrot it.
Mm-hmm. And is there a method that you use? Are you a journaler? Are you somebody who sits in meditation with your eyes closed and, in lotus? Is there a process that you have found with the students you've worked with that really that the majority of them go, wow, that was amazing?
Well, the technology that's with us all the time is our breath. And so the fastest and most congruent, and you never leave home without it. So you don't have to worry about, oh my God, where's my smartphone, and start having stress because your app is on there and you can't access it. Again, psychologists talk about the psychophysiological isomorphism. It's a long-winded word to say there's a one-to-one relationship between your breathing state and your mental emotional state. So we can all think about the time we're anxious and the breath is high up in our chest and it's shallow and it's quick. And then we can think about our first day on vacation and we land on that beach and we kick our legs into the sand and there's this low, long, sighing, releasing breath. And so, the breath, with 3 breaths, you can change your state of consciousness. So I would invite everyone to just attend a little more to your breathing. Again, another part of the yogic practice that doesn't get short shrift because we're working on those bodacious buns and ridiculous abs and all the other stuff. But the breath can be your fastest and always most accessible tool to creating some self-reflection. And
thank you for that. Particularly
when you get triggered, somebody says something and your first response is you want to, bite the head off or verbally go on a counterattack. Or again, offensive techniques. The offense has 2 sides to it. One is you're taking the lead. The other is you're actually offending. So just take a breath and then make sure that that's exactly, when you open your mouth, are you getting closer to where you want to go or further away?
Oh my gosh, fantastic. You've given me so many little lines that I love, little prompts that are going to stimulate my writing. I just love, love, love what you've shared today, Neville. And for people who would like to learn more about you, connect with you, where do you hang out online? Well, do you hang out online?
No, not a lot, but LinkedIn, you can find me by my first name, last name. And I have a blog called Soul Food Friday. You can find that at soulfoodfriday.com.
Nice.
Where I try to put some positive energy out into the universe every Friday.
Fantastic.
It could be about well-being, leadership, culture, healing, music, just whatever during the week I was exposed to and inspired by and wanted to share the love. So
all the good stuff. Music, food, positivity, art. I mean, who doesn't like that? It's wonderful. So team, that the links to connect with Neville and read his blog will be on his show notes page at pyppodcast.com. And I would encourage you to pay more attention to your breathing and figure out some self-reflective techniques. I'll do a solo episode about some of the things that Neville shared, as well as some of the techniques that I've learned along the way. But for now, as we wrap things up, Neville, would you mind sharing a book that has made a big difference to you in your life? It's maybe one you read a long time ago, maybe one you just finished reading, or perhaps it's one you turn to again and again.
Well, one book. I'm a bookaholic.
Gee, that surprises me.
I have a book problem. Well, maybe one that people have heard of that they may not have read, but it's the most widely read book on the planet, and it's been read more than the Bible, is the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu.
Yes.
So there's many translations. You have to take it in small, pithy bites if you want to absorb it. It's not just you don't sit down and power read it and check it off the box. But that's one that might some folks might find of interest.
Yes.
I have too many to name. It's like pick your favorite kid. So
I tell you, it's impossible.
But that's one at least that might prompt some appreciation for another way of being and again an investment in harmonizing with nature and finding our place and going with the flow, and there's many derivatives that can come from that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. It is a good one. I did not know that it was the most widely read book in the world. That's an interesting little piece of trivia.
Well, it was 7 billion people in China. it gives them a good jump start, I should just say.
Yeah. Seriously. Oh my gosh. Well, Neville, this has been wonderful. You really did show up today and gave us your best game to keep my metaphor alive here. And I appreciate that you are alive in the world, that you are putting positive energy into the folks that you work with, your family, and just the world in general. I mean, we need more Nevilles in the world.
Very sweet.
Maybe this will start. You'll inspire some people to think about things a little bit differently, and that's really the point. So, thank you for your time today.
It was my honor. Thank you for creating the space for this.
The Right to Grow Writing Workshop is for fiercely independent business owners, freelancers, and solopreneurs who aren't getting everything you can out of your current writing efforts. In this workshop, you will learn how to write more efficiently and effectively to grow your business. Students love my small workshops because I create a safe space for self-discovery and collaboration. Also, you're not alone on your path to growing your business when you become a part of the Right to Grow family. Listen, running a business comes with a lot of challenges. Writing shouldn't be one of them. Learn more about this dynamic experiential workshop at pyppodcast.com/W2G. That's pyppodcast.com/W2G. I look forward to seeing you inside the Right to Grow cohort. This podcast was produced by Daniel Romeros. Show notes for this episode can be found over at pyppodcast.com. I'm Mary Lou Kaiser. Thanks for listening.
Got a great key offensive strategy you like to share? Write to us at coach@pyppodcast.com or on Twitter, use #PYP and let us know how you're running your ball into the end zone for those game-winning touchdowns.